What happens when you're buying or selling a home if it doesn't appraise for what it sold for? I'm Cindy Wadsworth.
And I'm Pete Pacina.
And we're with the Cindy Wadsworth team at eXp Realty. This seems to be a very hot topic of conversation. It's something that we get asked every single time we buy or sell a home.
Yeah, it's one of the big factors that come into play, especially with the market, the way it's been increasing and appreciating over the last 2 years. People have been bidding well over the asking price, and it's always been a concern for both the buyer and the seller what happens. So what are the options when an appraisal comes in?
So what we normally tell people is if an appraisal comes in under what the house actually sold for, there are usually four things that can happen. The first is that the seller would have to come down to the appraised value of the home. The second is that the buyer would have to bring cash to make up the difference between the appraised value and what the home sold for. The third is that they can meet somewhere in the middle and come to a mutual agreement on that. And then the fourth is that the deal falls apart and it terminates.
Yeah, and what we noticed over doing this for thousands of transactions at this point is that if both parties really want to make a deal work, they'll figure out a solution other than terminating the deal itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the buyer and seller both want to still make the deal happen, they'll come to terms one way or the other. Typically what we're going to see is some kind of negotiation where they come to an agreed upon price somewhere close to where it appraised for, or somewhere in the middle of where it appraised for and what they actually sold it for.
Yeah, in the past 6 months to a year, with the market being so hot, a lot of times buyers were writing into the contracts that they will absolutely make up the difference, if there is any, between the appraised value and the sale price, because they're typically bidding well over asking, so the seller wasn't asking for that price, but they have to have the cash to do that. Now that we've seen the market shift, we're not seeing that as much anymore. In fact, we're not usually seeing any verbiage in the agreement about making up an appraisal difference, but that's when it comes back down to negotiating after it happens.
Absolutely. So if you are thinking about selling your home in this current market and you start getting some offers that are above asking, it's one thing that we definitely want to talk about before we accept the offer is how we're going to handle the appraisal should it not appraise.
Right? And actually on the buyer side, we've seen this happening a little bit now too, where the house actually appraises for more than what the buyer has paid for it. It's happened on our last 2 buyer side transactions, and we've gone back to the mortgage company and asked if we could bump up the sale price to the appraised value and then get the buyer a credit back from the seller to do some of the work that they wanted to do in the house.
Yep, and that way it helps them with their out-of-pocket money, but at the same time it also nets the seller the same amount of money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So all great things to keep in mind there when dealing with an appraisal and the sale and purchase of a home. If you have any other questions related to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always here for your real estate needs.
Bye.
Take care.